the live stream started now, Councillor Brown. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the electoral review panel, which is a virtual meeting. I'm now going to turn away because I've got to read some text which you will all be familiar with by now. Welcome to this virtual meeting of Cornwall Council's electoral review panel. Before consideration of today's business, I will outline the protocols for the meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed to the public via Microsoft Teams and is also being recorded. If the council's live stream fails during the meeting and we cannot share the proceedings, I will adjourn the meeting so that access can be restored.
Their departure will be confirmed and they will be invited to rejoin the meeting at the appropriate time. To confirm the procedure for today's meeting is that members of the subcommittee who wish to speak on an item should indicate by putting an X in the chat box. Before we start today's business, I will ask the committee members to confirm that they are present and state their electoral division member. I will now call your name. Please confirm your name and electoral division member. Councillor May.
Councillor May, Penryn West.
Thank you. Councillor Luke.
Councillor Luke, Penwith Kemper Scopper.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Councillor John Martin for Helston South.
Thank you. I can confirm that the following officers are also present: Mark Andrews, Legal Officer; Sharon Dower, Licensing Officer; myself, Emma Code, Democratic Officer; and Angela Saunders, Meeting Producer. The first item on today's agenda is election of chairman. Could I please ask for nominations for the election of chairman?
Proposed, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Proposed by Councillor May.
Seconded by myself, Councillor Luke.
Okay, are there any other nominations? No. Could I ask for everybody to confirm they're happy for Councillor Martin to be chairman?
Yes, I am happy.
Thank you.
I'm happy too.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. You were elected chairman.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, again, we've introduced the officers and the subcommittee. I will now ask the parties present to introduce themselves before the licensing officer outlines the matter. So could I first of all ask for those parties supporting the application to introduce themselves for the committee. Thank you very much. Hello?
Chairman, it's Emma Code, Democratic Officer. I think the applicant is still on mute. If you could press *6 on your telephone to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Mr. Fudge, you need to press *6 on your telephone to unmute yourself, please.
Mr. Fudge.
Sorry, Chairman, it's Mark Andrews from Legal Services here. Perhaps if someone could read out, perhaps if Emma could read out the names of the people, and if they could that are supposed to be here, sure. And then if they could confirm that they are here, otherwise it's going to perhaps get a little bit chaotic.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll read out the list of those who will be in attendance today. If you are on the line, could you please just confirm your attendance? So Sharon Dower, Licensing Officer.
Yes.
Thank you. Simon Fudge, applicant.
Hello, I'm Roy Light. Simon and I and another person thought we were going to be phoned, but I've just phoned you and I've just contacted them to tell them to phone in, so they should be phoning in any second.
Yeah, the applicant is actually on the line. His telephone is on mute at the moment.
Yeah, it's Angela Saunders, meeting producer. Mr. Fudge, if you can hear me and you're unable to mute your phone, could you please hang up and dial in again, please?
Thank you. I'll proceed down the list. Richard Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. Ian Robertson, other person. Ian Robertson, you are on mute. Could you just press *6, please, on your telephone? Mr. Robinson, are you present?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Esther Dunstan, other person, are you present?
Yes, present.
Thank you.
Yep.
Rebecca and John Frankis, other persons. Could you confirm you're present?
Yes, we're here.
Both. Both of us present.
Thank you. And Jessica Howie, other person. Could you confirm you're present?
It's Angela Saunders, meeting producer. I'll try and contact her.
Okay, and we're still waiting for the applicant Simon Fudge to confirm he's attending.
Yeah, he's left the meeting. I think he's going to dial in again by the look of it.
Okay, we'll just wait a moment so everybody's online. Thank you.
Can anybody hear me? Hello?
Yes, is that Professor Roy Light?
It is, yes. Thank you.
Yes, all clear.
Thanks very much.
Okay, is Simon Fudge applicant on the line now?
Yeah, I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you confirm you can hear us?
Yes, I can confirm I can hear you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Basically, explain the procedure. We first of all will have the licensing officer to explain the licensing application. And after that, I will ask any members of the committee whether they need to ask questions to the licensing officer, and then we will ask the applicant or their representative to present their application and call any witnesses. So first of all, can I call on the licensing officer to present the application, please?
Oh, Chairman, it's Emma Code, Democratic Officer. Could we just go through the items on the agenda before we start?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes.
No, that's fine. I can confirm I have no apologies for absence. So it's item 3, declarations of interest.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And can I ask, are there any declarations of interest from any of the members, please?
No, Chairman.
No, Chairman, no.
Thank you very much. So the application for consideration is point 4 of the agenda.
electoral changes order back in 2019 from the Boundary Commission, and therefore if we are changing any boundaries or any of the governance arrangements for any of those protected parishes, then the Boundary Commission will need to consent. So therefore we've indicated in the appendices where that is the case. The Boundary Commission not interested in any of the other parishes. The Boundary Commission will also need to consent if we are going to be recommending any changes to the electoral division boundaries. Why should we do that? The point is that where the parish boundaries and the electoral division boundaries are currently coterminous, then we would want to try to keep it that way. Otherwise, we'll have to create new polling districts, which isn't the most efficient way forward. So therefore, we will have a number of recommendations that electoral division boundary changes be requested, and we will need to provide information to the Boundary Commission in relation to housing projections and such matters, in order that the electoral equality ratio is consistent. Going then on to the consideration of the responses to the public consultation document, as we say in paragraph 4, over 1,000 responses and submissions have been received, and the vast majority have been supportive of the draft recommendations, but there are some which have either objected or have proposed alternatives, and we have analysed or sought to analyse in the appendices where there have been any substantive objections. In other words, new information or new evidence has been provided. And as a result of that, as you'll see in 4.9, the recommendations of the officers are that the recommendations in those cases which were made by Council in December should be amended. The criteria that members need to take into account when making decisions is set out in 4.4 and 4.5, which is that the council has to ensure that community governance within the area will be reflective of the identities and interests of the community in that area, and effective and convenient. So that is the standard and the test that needs to be done. So the recommendations are set out in appendices 1 to 19, ordered in terms of the CNA number, the community network number, which is the sequence set out on the web page for the community consultation itself. Finally, appendix 20 sets out the running order in which the panel is invited to consider the recommendation for each parish. And the aim of that is to make sure that those where there are no disagreements, where everybody is content with what has happened and what is recommended, they can be dealt relatively swiftly. Of the others, the council has to make a decision as to whether or not to keep the proposals as done. In the more complex and controversial proposals, and members can decide whether to make no change at the time, or whether to defer, or whether to make a change. And in the event of the panel deciding that it needs more information, then obviously it will be sensible to defer, and if deferred, it will then be referred to the next council, because obviously this council would not be able to consider anything after November, because there would not be time to implement in time for the elections in May 2021. That's a quick summary, Chairman. Don't know whether anybody has any questions.
If anybody has any questions or comments, not on the individual parishes, but the general context, if they can tick the chat box. Don't think anyone is at the moment. I'm assuming. Okay, I've got Councillor Kenny and then Councillor Buscombe. Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, this is a silly question. I've only just come back from holiday. Can you remind me where I find the web page to see the maps? I thought they would be in the papers and they're not.
They are in the papers, Councillor Kenny, and
Okay.
the link is 4.1.
I'm sorry, where am I looking?
4.1, paragraph 4.1, page 6. And if you look at the report online, you will then be able to click the link.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And it wasn't silly.
Next is Councillor Buscombe.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Mr. Chairman, as I'm not a member of the panel. This might not be the right time to raise this, and if it's not, please tell me so. Could someone give me a brief outline of the procedure that would need to take place if a community after May of next year, wish to ask for a governance review? How would that go about, and what would they need to be able to demonstrate? So if let's say and this is about Travone in my division, if we were to come to a decision, or the panel came to a decision today, in future, how easy or difficult would it be for a community to ask for a review, once the work of the panel is completed? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll just say one thing, and then I'll ask for further comment. It isn't a silly question. We're coming on to individual parishes in a minute, and Padstow is one about which I've written to members, and we will decide shortly how we're going to proceed with Padstow Parish. I wonder, Stephen, if you could give a general reply about what will happen if the panel decides, either from choice or because we run out of time, to refer any issues to the next council.
Yes, certainly, Chairman. So far as if any matters which are referred to the council would be deferred, so therefore the review would not have been finished in relation to those particular parishes. So therefore, when the council would come to consider it at the next after the May 21 elections, then they would have to review any submissions that have been received to date, and I would imagine, although it's a matter for them, that there would be another request issued for any further comment and submissions to be made. So it will be a continuation of the current review. It will be a slightly different issue for those parishes where there has been a finality as a result of this process, where the council had made a decision, and that will then be embodied in the order and will then be implemented in time for the May 21 elections, in which case then there is a procedure, statutory procedure, that would then kick in if somebody wanted to have a further review of that area. The council is always able to commence review itself at any time of just that particular parish or groups of parishes. It can be forced to do one after the statutory time, which from memory, but I will confirm that is a year from the conclusion of the previous review. Does that help?
I'll ask Councillor Buscombe if that's clear as a general answer.
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman. My only concern, I don't want to labour this, but my only concern in relation to Travone is that I understand that the people in Travone that wish.
Sorry, could I stop you there?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be quite a rough chairman. Otherwise we'll only deal with a third of Cornwall in 10 hours. We'll come on to Travone a bit later. I think you've had a general answer.
Yeah.
Councillor Jenkin and then Councillor Fonk. Councillor Jenkin. Is Councillor Jenkins still with us?
Yes, I am. I lost audio for a minute. Are you asking me to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, it was in relation to 4.8, 4.9 in the report, which is about where Cornwall Council has decided something which a parish may agree with or not. Just to ask on 4.9, how it was decided which parishes would be recommended to consider further, or recommendations might be changed, and how that was decided, because I'm not clear on that.
That's a good question. Stephen.
Yes, certainly, Chairman. And just to correct the time limits that I mentioned previously, what the 2007 Act says is that if the Council has concluded a review within the 2-year periods, there is not a duty to respond to a further application. So it's 2 years once the review is completed. But as I said, if a decision has been deferred, then the review of that particular period, of that particular parish is ongoing. To deal with Councillor Jenkins' point, in 4.9, the officers simply reviewed the submissions that were received, and if new information came forward, either in terms of the community identity, which was supported by evidence, and that was then sufficient to overcome the recommendation that was made by Council in December, then the recommendations have been changed. But we have flagged that up, and that's happened in 4 instances that officers have identified. But obviously, it's up to members of the panel if they wish to review any of the submissions that have been received.
So the officers decided on the level of evidence required to consider them.
Well, we haven't decided. What we're doing is recommendation. Officers have no power to decide. But what we've done is we've looked at the evidence that's put forward, and if there's new evidence, we've taken account of that in the recommendations.
So I hate to be parochial, but I know that new evidence was submitted in relation to Wendron-Helston boundary, but that's not been listed.
Well, it's new substantive evidence. If it's simply a repeat of what has already been put forward, then that has not necessarily resulted in a change in the recommendation. It has to be new substantive evidence as to, for example, the level of public community involvement and the evidence in support of that, whether it be by way of surveys or whether it be by way of comments that have been received.
I suggest that I'm aware that substantive evidence was presented and was given previously and not presented. So
yeah.
This isn't there.
Sorry, I think I want to pause this now because we're coming on to talk about Wendron and Helston very shortly. I think you've made a general point. Stephen has explained these are officer recommendations. The Vice Chair and I were not involved with them at all. They're a starting point for the committee to consider, and we will on each individual place in turn. I'm perfectly happy with the way that in difficult circumstances, officers have done a lot of work very quickly. Okay. Councillor Fonk.
Thank you for let me in, Malcolm. I won't labour the meeting, just basically want to confirm that the panel members and the officers received the email and the responses from my division, because I'll probably have to leave shortly. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think, yeah, certainly I have, and I can tell you in a minute we will be talking about certain parishes, and Penzance is, I think, top of the list of them. So if you've already left, your point has been noted. If not, you can contribute further in a minute. Is that all right?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to ask questions or make comments on the general report? I will now remind members to mute microphones and not to leave cameras on, please. And that becomes more important as we go through the meeting because maps will be displayed. Okay, is everyone aware of that? Okay, now we've dealt with the first bit of the report. we're not voting on the recommendations. The recommendations will be voted at the end of the final meeting. But what I want to do now is just to agree the process by which we're going to conduct ourselves as a panel. I think first of all, it's fair to say, and I've said this already, that a few months ago it looked as if the review wouldn't continue at all. So I think it's very impressive the amount of work that has been done by officers since the last meeting of the panel. What they have done, they've come up with a set of recommendations for every parish, every border issue, which they are fully entitled to. What the Vice Chair and I have been thinking about, we had a chat probably about 10 days ago, was the order in which to deal with matters at these meetings and the amount of time that is needed. And I think we came to two conclusions. There are 3 dates which are set aside. Today, the 1st of October, which would be another 6 o'clock, which would be another 2 p.m. meeting, and then a 10 o'clock meeting on the 6th of October. I think what I want you to agree today is whether you are willing to have 3 meetings. And can I say to Councillor Kenny, as Councillor Wood has, that your camera is on. I think I really want you to agree today whether you want there to be 3 meetings of the panel or 2. I want you to agree whether you want to set a certain amount of business for each meeting and we continue until we finish, or whether you want to set time limits. Now, there may in practice be time limits anyway, because under the Microsoft Teams system, we're allowed 4 hours from when the meeting begins. So, for example, the meeting today cannot go on later than 6 o'clock, which you'll probably all be extremely relieved to hear. What it does mean, though, is that if we decide to have 3 meetings, the 3rd meeting, the 6th of October, can be a double meeting. So in effect, a bit like council yesterday, there would be 1 meeting and then there would be a longer interval, and then there would be a continuation of the meeting legally, but it would technically be a new meeting. So I really wanted your views on that. We also wanted your views on the order in which to deal with the issues. I think the Vice Chairman and I take the view that we probably are going to have limited time and we probably won't get through every issue, and therefore that the ones that we can't get to will have to be referred to the next council anyway. But there are some, we put them into 5 categories, and I've written to the councillors who represent the parishes covered by the 5th category, and I'll explain in a minute what their comments were, because I think it will be quite helpful with some of them if we can agree early on whether we're definitely going to debate them if there's time, but that would be at the foot of the agenda if you agree with the Vice Chairman and myself, or whether we refer them to the next council. So I don't want yet, that will be the next discussion, to talk about any of those individual areas. I would just like members' views on whether you would like the 3 meetings and what time periods you would like them to run between, and whether you agree with us about dealing with the parishes in the order essentially less complicated, working through to the most complicated. So if anyone wants to put their hand up to comment, probably Dick, if you'd like to come in first, because I've tried to explain what I think is the view of both of us. I would rather have the Xbox than the hands raised, please. That's easier to follow.
Chairman, yeah, I think my fear has always been the amount of work we've got to get through in the time available and how we're very constrained. So I think starting with the very easy ones. So, for example, I think there's 122 parishes where there's no change whatsoever. It's going to be great to have one vote to deal with all of those and then work our way through. I'm also agree with you that there's some really complicated ones where there's different representations and there's potential for further information. And I'm quite keen that there are some that are deferred or referred through to the next council, and we can obviously commit to carrying the process on and making sure we do a very good job of it and come to a fair decision. So I'm very much with you, and I presume we'll need the 3 meetings. And there's a lot of commitment from the members on this committee, but I certainly agree with you in terms of starting easy, working through and deferring those that have, that are difficult. I think that's a very, very sensible approach to take at this point. So,
Councillor Wood, Councillor Thomas, and then Councillor Moorcroft. Councillor Wood first.
I think I'm in disagreement because I really think the complex and difficult ones should be high up the agenda, and that we are time limited because that's just a fact of life. If we then allocate 20 minutes towards the end of the meeting for pushing through the easy ones, then at least you've got that carrot at the end of the day, rather than, and people will know they are being considered. But the complex ones take a lot of thought and a lot of going through, and I think a lot of time needs to be allocated to them whilst people are fresh and on the ball, so to speak. And I think the meeting does have to be time limited. I personally don't want to go on all afternoon and evening. And 3 meetings, yes, maybe not. That may not be enough. Thank you.
Next is Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Malcolm. I tend to agree with both Dick and John in a way. But they need to be done. Whether we do it at the end or the beginning, I don't think really matters, but I think it'd be nice to get them out of the way. Those that are straightforward. I'm happy for 3 meetings. I really would like to think we could finish at 5 o'clock and 3 hours as a maximum, purely for concentration. And I like the idea of 2 separate ones for the 3rd meeting. And I think we just have to get to a point where we just haven't got any more time. If it's the case that the officers can't allow us a fourth meeting, then that's it, end of story. And you will chair the meeting in the manner in which you do. We will get through the stuff that we can, and I just think if we can't get through it, that's it. If that helps.
Yeah, I'll just make one point. I said I wasn't going to, but I always break my own rules. Just in fairness to the officers, I don't think the main factor is the availability of officers. It's just as that's the availability of members. I know that some members, for example, are in that. If the health committee is still going on, some of them are doubling up with that and this. So, and there is a deadline of the date of the special council, and there needs to be a period after the last meeting of the panel for all councillors to be consulted as to whether they wish to put amendments. So it may well be that yet another meeting could take place, but I think we probably need to see certainly how we get on at the first 2.
May I make one final point?
Certainly.
One thing I did raise at a previous meeting, which I think was one of perhaps the last face-to-face ones we had, was the fact that this current panel is quite different from what we sent as we started off, and we've got a lot of people who have joined the panel who are not familiar with some of the decision making that took place earlier on. And I think it's important that those panel members who are coming across these various parishes do actually ask the questions so they fully understand all the issues. And I mean, to be honest, some of the issues that I went through with you are still quite hard to get to fully comprehend. So if I was coming to this now completely fresh, it would be really, really complicated. So I think we must take account that a lot of members will need to be given a bit of help and to explain things which may not have been apparent to explain in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good lead in for Councillor Moorcroft, who is next.
I think I fall into that category, Councillor Thomas. Thank you. I agree with Councillor Cole and yourself, Mr. Chairman. I think we should have the 3 meetings. Put to bed the 122 that are agreed, and then delve into the next ones, and hopefully we can resolve them.
You caught me by surprise. You were so quick. Councillor Kenny and then Councillor Bastin. Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, I wouldn't want anything longer than 3 hours because I've got another meeting this evening and I will collapse. I think, I mean, the really complex ones, I thought we had agreed that those would be deferred anyway. So you've got the dead simple ones like, you know, moving 2 bushes, whatever, which you can be rubber stamped through. And then there are the really complex ones, which we were going to defer. So we wouldn't be spending a long time on that anyway. So I think it's only the ones where we think we can come to a conclusion. And I'm really not certain how many of those there are. I mean, I'm certainly looking at the Newquay. There are 4 proposals. They're 2 dead simple that everyone has agreed. They're 2 immensely complex ones, which we can't possibly agree, and those are going to be deferred. So the Newquay is going to be quite quick, even though it's one of the most complicated areas.
Okay, I'm not commenting on Newquay because we're coming to that in the next bit of the item. Councillor Bastin.
Well, thank you, Chair. I'm just really agreeing with yourself and Dick, but also bringing a little bit of Councillor Thomas in as well. In other words, I mean, luckily I've attended most of these. May find it useful from time to time to have a little bit of revision. So, but certainly 3 meetings, and I'm sure we can unpick most of it, dare I say it. Thanks.
Right. I'm trying to establish what a consensus view is. I think there's a consensus for 3 meetings. I don't think anyone is disagreeing with that. I think in a way we probably will deal with some of the very complex ones early on, at least agree how we're going to deal with them, and that will be after we've concluded this. And then I think the real thing is whether we do them in the order the Vice Chairman and I are suggesting, or almost turn it on its, or sort of do it almost the reverse order. I personally would prefer to do the simpler ones first, partly because that will mean that we will get more areas concluded, and also I know there are some aspirations like the new parishes, which I regard as really important, setting up the new parish for Delabole, the parish of Tregony and Cuby. If we deal with them at the end, that we may run out of time. So I honestly think the Vice Chair and I have got it right, and I would hope you would agree to carry on that basis.
Yes.
I give you 10 block votes, Councillor Thomas. Okay, is everybody happy with that? Again, the other thing I don't want to do is to spend too long talking about talking. So if we do that, and we can take stock at the beginning of each meeting, if necessary, on the basis of how we're doing. Now, can I move on to if you like, the most complicated? And I see Councillor Fairman has raised a massive hand. Now, the Vice Chair and I, and we may have got this right, may have got this wrong, we tried to identify the border issues which we thought were the most complicated, controversial, and on past experience likely to generate the most debate. So they are at the foot of the agenda, which means if they're debated, unless you decide otherwise, that will be at the foot of the agenda, but there is an option to refer them to the next council. And I wrote, I admit this was all done very late, but the agenda wasn't finalised until very late either. I've written to all the councillors in those 8 areas, and I want us to make a decision today without debating the issues themselves. I want us to decide how we're going to deal with them. And having spoken to the officers a bit earlier, we've come to the following view, that we can agree today to refer a particular issue to the next council. If members disagree disagree from a particular area, we consider it again at the start of the third meeting on the basis of how much progress we're making. So if say members are taking different opinions, we're suggesting we don't make a definite decision today because that would take too long. It would mean a detailed debate about the particular area. Whereas if there is agreement, then I think we can agree that we're going to refer to the next council. Does that seem fair enough as a general principle? It will make a bit more sense when we start talking about them. Okay. Right. Now, the first one is Penzance. All the issues about Penzance, including the relationship with Madron Parish. I wrote to all the councillors, had replies from councillors Dwelly, Fonk and Hawkins, all of whom were supportive of all of the Penzance issues being referred to the next council. So that is what I would suggest that we do. I think as we go through this, what I'm going to ask is if anybody disagrees. So if anybody disagrees, please say so. We're not going to have formal votes on this today because if we refer any, that will be part of the general recommendations, which we will do at the third meeting when officers have pulled everything together again. So are we all happy for Penzance to be referred to the next council? Stephen.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Apologies for not using the meeting chat, but the hand was clearer. There is absolutely no problem with that. It would be helpful if there was a rationale given for the deferral, whether it be due to the complexity or whether it be due to further evidence being requested or whatever, just so that we can be very clear if asked what the rationale is for deferring it.
Okay. Will panel members be content for the Vice Chair and myself to give the rationale? If we have to agree the rationale today, that is actually the same as having the debate, which I don't want to have because it will take up too much time. Is everybody happy with that? Good. Now the next one is Helston Wendron, which comes into the exact other category, in that councillors Thomas and Martin would like to continue during the current council. Councillor Jenkin would like to refer to the next council. What I suggest is that is in the category that we consider at the very start of the third meeting as to what we are going to do. So therefore, we don't have to have the debate today. We are noting that we will deal with how we're going to decide it at the start of the third meeting on the 6th of October. Is everybody happy with that?
Can I say yes again?
Yes, yeah. So again, I'm conscious if there is a debate, there will be a big one. Okay, so that's that one. Now the third one is the Perranzabulo-Cubit boundary at Holywell Bay, Penhale Camp. Councillor Harvey has written, and I think he's present today. Councillor Harvey has written asking that we continue. Councillor Callan has been unwell, and we did have an email literally about an hour before the meeting started from the clerk of Perranzabulo Parish Council, giving what, in fairness, I must say, is some new evidence and some detailed arguments. So I think you can take it that one of the parishes wants to continue, one of the others doesn't. And I suggest that we put that in the category like we've just done for Helston Wendron to come back to at the start of the third meeting. I don't know, Councillor Harvey, I think you're present. If you want to say anything on that, you know, just the process, not your argument for change, but the process. If you wish to say anything on that, then please do. Thank you.
I would like it to come back to the third meeting, if you could, please.
Okay, it will be okay. That's fine. So we will do that. So that was the third one. Now the fourth one is Newquay Colon. Councillor Fitter has advised me he would support referring the Newquay Colon issues to the next council. Councillor Kenny made some comments a few minutes ago, and I know Councillor Formosa is a member of the panel. I didn't hear from any of the other Newquay or Colon members. So again, without trying to reopen the Newquay Colon debate, it would be helpful to hear from perhaps Councillor Formosa first, because you haven't spoken, and then Councillor Kenny, as regards how you would like Newquay and Colon to be dealt with.
Yes, I think it's appropriate, really, to support Councillor Fitter's proposal for it to be deferred to the next council. It's quite a complicated, delicate issue, really. I think under the circumstances we should take our time over it, if that's okay.
Thank you very much indeed. That's very clear. Councillor Kenny.
So I think we're all in agreement here. You can do two of them. You can shift the boundary at Priory Woods, which is 50 yards to the road, and you can include the one that we've all agreed, which is including the supermarket and the industrial estate. I think that's recommendations 1 and 2 in the report. Those are all agreed. There's nothing complicated about that. Both Colon and Newquay agree, so you can agree those two. The more complex ones, I agree. I think they should both be deferred. So effectively, there are 4 different changes. 2 of them are just rubber stamping through, everybody's happy, and 2 of them are too complicated to talk about.
Okay, I'm going to ask I see Councillor Fitter is here. Great. Councillor Fitter, would you like to comment, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir, certainly. And thank Councillor Formosa and Councillor Kenny for agreeing that the complications area of the Goldings and the land that is to the south of the main road that goes down should be deferred to the next authority. It's too complicated, and I would certainly agree with the 2 panel members if your committee is minded, sir, to pass that over to the new authority, but also to agree what has been agreed, which is the movement of that part of the industrial estate and the supermarket and the Priory Wood bit into Newquay Parish. I would certainly agree with that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Could I ask Councillor Formosa, again, that's a sort of bit of a nuance on what you were saying. Would you go along with that?
Yes, I'm happy with that, Chairman.
Right. I'm now going to ask officers, do you understand what has been said? Because I think again, this is slightly different from what we've had so far. If it is the case that part of the Newquay Colon issue will be referred to the next council, but part of it is agreed by consensus amongst the local members, I would suggest that the third meeting, the first item on the agenda of areas that we consider, is to deal with the non-contentious bits of Newquay Colon, as long as you're clear as officers that you know which ones we're referring to by that.
I'll defer to my colleagues Dan and Andrew, but certainly I'm clear on what you just said, and if we aren't clear, we'll look back at the recording.
Good. So it looks as if everyone is happy with that. Right, now the next one is the St Austell Boscopper area. Again, I wrote to the St Austell and Treverbin members. It may be Councillor Cole can update things a minute, but my understanding is that Councillor Bull and Councillor Saunders wanted this area to be debated, but from different sides of the fence, so to speak. I personally think it would be better for it to be referred, and I think Councillor Cole is going to say that's what Councillor Luke believes as well. Councillor Cole.
Yeah, Chairman, I've spoken to Matthew and he agrees with you that a referral would be most appropriate. I've also spoken to the clerk of the parish council at Treverbin, who was of a similar opinion. I also took the liberty of speaking to Sally, and she's relaxed about the Carclays Boscopper one being deferred, to be honest. She was more keen to ensure that that there was a discussion and a finalisation of the the recommendation not to proceed with a change at Mennacuddle Well, which is the different issue between Treverban and St Austell. So that was her priority. So obviously that one's being discussed and voted on. So I think she would be quite content with the deferral for the larger area, which, as she noted, was Matthew's division, not hers. So
yeah, without going on too long, the lesser issue at Mennacuddle Well is on the agenda to be dealt with. You know, personally, I would prefer it to be deferred now, and because that is quite a big area which will be taken off the agenda. So again, would everybody be happy with that, with the assurance that the Mennacuddle Well issue, which those of you who are on the panel before will remember, that will be determined by this council. Okay. Number 6 was Padstow, which was on the agenda because of the Trevone issue. Councillor Buscombe can speak for himself, but he wrote to me yesterday. I haven't really had time to reply to him because he was asking if it was deferred, what that would mean in practice. So I'll ask Councillor Buscombe now to say what he would like as regards Padstow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, having listened to what's been said so far in this meeting, I think I would like this one to be deferred to the next council because this has been an ongoing issue in Trevone and indeed Padstow for some time. I'm advised that at next year's town council elections, there are three seats that are reserved for Trevone residents, and the people that wish to see Trevone have its own parish council, they're going to put up 3 candidates. The people that want to see the union with Padstow Town Council maintained are also going to put up 3 candidates. So it will be a good example to see, you know, what the actual what local opinion is like there. Both groups tell me that the other group haven't got a chance of winning, and it's going to be a quite straightforward victory. So I think I'd like to see this boil lanced. We can have the town council elections next year, and then we can, you know, have the new council can have a real feel for what the people of Trevone want. Thank you.
That makes absolute sense to me. Does anybody else wish to comment or disagree? No. That was my area 6. Area 7, St Minver Highlands and St Minver Lowlands. I wrote to Councillor Mould, and she's written back to me that she would actively like the St Minver issues to be deferred. If you remember, this is a complicated one because there were a number of different proposals, and we were going to have a public meeting there, which of course couldn't happen because of the coronavirus situation. So I think she would be happy, but again, she made the point, a bit like Councillor Buscombe, that if it's deferred, if it can be picked up reasonably early in the next council, and I think we're being told by Stephen Taylor that that would mean probably, if the council wants to do anything, picking it up about 12 months in. So that is what Councillor Mould says, and I defy anyone to go against her. Okay, and the very last of my category is Davidstow and Trineglos. Those of you who were at the public meeting at Tregadillet way back will remember there is an aspiration at Trineglos to become part of a parished area, and discussions with Davidstow and Warpstow have got so far but haven't been completed. So I wrote to the two local Cornwall councillors. Councillor Jordan, I don't think quite understood what I wrote. It was probably worded very badly because he thought I was trying to set up a meeting about Trineglos. I heard from the community link officer yesterday evening as a result of that. My impression is that that hasn't got to the point yet anything is definite, unless officers have got knowledge, which I don't, which is very possible, but there is still this aspiration to bring democracy back to Trineglos. So therefore the sensible way forward is to refer that to the next council as well. Again, I don't know if anybody wishes to comment on that. Okay, so we've been through all 8. So just to pick them up, just to summarise them all, we're saying we would like to refer the issues relating to Penzance Parish to the next council. We will consider Helston, Wendron, how to deal with it at the start of the 3rd meeting of the panel. Likewise, Perham-Zabulo and Cubert, exactly the same. Newquay and Colon, a bit different. We will refer the complicated bits to the next council, but the straightforward bits, we won't decide how to deal with them. We will actually deal with them at the beginning of the 3rd meeting. Boscopper and Treverbin, St Austell, we're referring to next council, as with Padstow, as with the St Minvers, and as with Davidstow and Trineglos. I hope I've summed that up correctly and that everybody's happy with that. I think for the moment, if we just note all of that, and that will be picked up in the formal recommendation along with any others that have to be referred. Is everybody happy with that? Okay, in that case, it's virtually 3 o'clock. I suggest we have a 5-minute break, and then we will start actually going through the parishes in the order that we've got in the appendix.
Chairman, Councillor Thomas.
Sorry?
Chairman, Councillor Thomas wants to speak.
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. I did put an X in there, but I think you were...
Sorry, I missed that.
No, it's my fault. No, just to ask if it's possible, if you could say something about how the debate will be in 3rd meeting. How will that be conducted? In what sort of manner will the debate go? And will there be time limits and whatever?
It would be the same as the other 2. One thing I will say, and to be honest, it partly depends how much we get through in the first 2, because that I think time pressure. One thing I will say, one of the complications with these meetings is we have to have a roll call vote for every vote. Now, if we did a roll call vote on 150 things, that would fill the whole meetings. What I think the Vice Chairman and I felt at the agenda session is that we will only have a vote as we start going through them if there is a recommendation from the panel different from the officer recommendation. So if we agree with the officers, that will just go through on the nod, and then we'll vote on it en bloc at the end.
But who will contribute to the debate? Will it just be panel members?
No, it's any councillor who wishes to.
Right, good, excellent.
But again, what my view is that we're here to make decisions, but that everybody needs to understand what we're voting on. And you made the point quite fairly about the newer members. We are going to be helped with some maps, and Dan is going to demonstrate his worth to the exercise yet again with that. So I'm not going to rush it. I want to be clear as we go through that everybody understands what we're voting on. I would rather deal with X areas and people know that we've dealt with it properly than rush through it all and get some things wrong.
Thank you.
Is that fair enough? So
yeah,
it's now 15:01. We'll start again at 15:06. Don't forget the live stream is still running, so switch your microphones off. And if you're gonna do anything dramatic, turn your camera off as well. Okay, we'll start again at 15:06. Right, how are we doing? Are all the panel members back?
I'm back.
Jolly good.
I'm back.
Excellent. I'm just okay.
Yeah, I'm back.
Right, I'm just seeing if we can get started. Okay, so now, right, so now we're on to the real thing. And I'm not gonna go quickly, I promised, especially Councillor McLenning. I'm gonna give pages when we get to them. Now, the first thing is all of the parishes where there are no changes recommended at all, and they start on page 158 and run through to yeah, they've one. Yeah, the last one is Tor Point, which is 122. So in effect, we've got 122 parishes listed. Does anybody have any comments on any of them? They are all parishes where no changes are being requested by anybody. So agreeing that they are no change ought to be straightforward. Okay, so I'll take it that those no changes are all agreed. Right, now the first area that we have to consider, so I'm a bit slow talking, so I'm trying to combine two screens. So I follow everything. The first issue that we're considering is the merger of Paul and St Buryan parishes, and that is discussed in the report on pages 16 and 17. So the proposal is for, the recommendation is paragraph 32 on page 17, which is that the parishes of Paul and St Buryan be merged to form a new parish named St Buryan, Lamorna and Paul, with a parish council of 18 members unwarded. Does anybody wish to speak on that? Stephen.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the only point to add on that is that we have contacted the parishes of Paul and St Buryan to check whether or not they do want 18 members. That's quite a lot of members for a parish of that electorate, although it is large geographically. So if there's going to be a change to the 18 and the parishes want less, then we will come back to you before the third meeting.
Yeah, to be honest, I hope we won't have to come back to too many. You know, that will make it quite messy. You know, my assumption is it's 18 unless we change it. Is that right?
Yes, but that could be changed. That could be changed at council if we got something late. So there doesn't need to come back to us.
That's fair enough.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody happy with that, or any comments?
I did. Sorry, Malcolm, I did put an X in the box. I was, funny enough, going to mention about 18 members. That did seem like quite a lot to me. So I think if that's what they want, that's what they want. But if I think less would probably be more suitable. Is the new parish name a name that those three parishes came up with? Because it just seems like a mouthful. I would have thought like the Lamorna Valley Parish Council would have made more sense for the general area.
I think a member for Bodmin would be very reckless to say to the people of Lamorna what they should call themselves.
It was their suggestion, Chairman.
No, I just that's all I wanted to know. If it's their suggestion, that's fine.
Councillor Moorcroft.
Yeah, just on that point, Mr. Chairman, is there any benefit in, say, just doing an amendment with a parish council of up to 18 members?
no. It will be, it needs to have a definite number at this stage. But certainly, as I said, if they come back with less than 18, then that can be changed at the council meeting on the 3rd of November.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, lawyers don't like words like normally, do they, Stephen?
Quite right, Chairman.
No, we have to be precise today because we're in effect framing a legal document. So, okay, so it's 80. So the name is supported, and the council size may be changed at council, in which case we will consult you. So the next one, now there's a series of things about Gwynedd Gwyddion and Hale. If you find the Gwynedd Gwyddion parish section in particular, which starts on page 25, there were a lot of proposals that came from Gwynedd Gwyddion, which those of you who are on the panel before will remember that we went through in great detail, and they involved several other parishes. They involved Hale, Crowan and Camborne from memory, and most of them we didn't really find justified. So if you look at page 28, paragraph 26, there's a recommendation for one change that the officers are recommending us to agree to, which I think is what we said before. Then there's another one that they're asking us to agree to, and then the other 7, it is suggested that we don't make any changes. Stephen, do you or Dan want to add anything to that so we all understand precisely what we're doing?
Perhaps Dan, if there's any issues on the maps, but it's fairly straightforward. The land at Connor Downs was fairly easily dealt with, and Nampuvska, it was again not particular great issues were raised, and the ward member and the divisional member agreed, as far as I can recall.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether Dan has any or Andrew has anything to add, Chairman.
This is Dan here. No, I don't think there's anything to add. I'm happy to bring up a map to show you the 2 changes that are recommended. But as we said in the previous panel meetings, it was agreed not to push forward with the other 2. Few.
Yeah. Do members want to see my recollection of the discussion at the previous panel when we had Councillor Pollard present was that Hale didn't want any further changes other than what's recommended, and I know Councillor Jenkin didn't want changes at Crowan. So I think the recommendations are consistent with what local members and us as a panel felt before. So does anybody wish to spend any more time on that, or are you content to go with that?
Councillor Jenkin wishes to speak, Chairman.
Good, okay, thank you. Councillor Jenkin.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you didn't change your mind and that only what was in the recommendations was what went through. So yeah, if members can agree to the recommendations, I'm content with that.
You are right not to trust us 1 inch, Councillor Jenkin.
Well, I've got experience.
I know. Okay, no. So are we content with those recommendations in paragraph 26 on page 28? Does anybody not agree? Okay, that goes forward. Now the next one is Hale Town Council, the number of councillors. Hale Parish also starts on page 28 immediately after Gwynedd Gwyddion, and the suggestion, which is from Hale Town Council, is that their number of councillors changes to 12, and there is a recommendation actually, which I'm not quite sure how we follow. If you look at page 30, recommendation 4, I'll ask Stephen to talk to this, which is Hale Town Council be requested to provide sufficient details to Cornwall Council as to any proposed internal ward boundary or the number of councillors for further consideration. I'm assuming they haven't done that yet. So if they haven't, when would further consideration take place? Would that be before council, or would that be the next council?
I think that it would have to go in stages. We have asked, and I in fact met with Hale Town Council before the pandemic in relation to the proposals, and the clerk was going to provide me with a map and more information about the number of councillors, because once you get the map, you then have to work out what the electoral ratio is, particularly as this is a protected parish from memory. So therefore, as we have not received any information, we couldn't recommend that there be changes. So what we are recommending now is that they do provide sufficient details, and then it would then have to go to council as something which has been proposed by Hale Town Council. But at the moment, there is nothing for the panel to agree to it.
So yeah, but we're meant to be formulating a recommendation to council. Are you saying that
no change at the moment?
Are you? Yes. So maybe we can ask you to rethink the wording of that. But maybe if there's time, perhaps contact Hale Town Council again, and if they can add anything before then, fine.
The recommendation then would be that there be no further changes to the governance arrangements of Hale Town Council. That will be the wording.
Vice Chairman.
Chairman, if there's a request for something as simple as changing the number of councillors, and if there is agreement from that town council, shouldn't we approach it along the lines of that we agree it in principle, subject to them supplying us with the information? And then, so in effect, we could agree it subject to that information, and then if that information arises, it can be ratified at full council. Otherwise, it can be dropped, rather than doing it as such a negative as Mr. Taylor suggested.
Hate to be negative, Chairman, but the only point is that if they are changing their warding arrangements, then we'll need to allocate the councillors to the relevant wards, and we can't do that until they get the map. So unfortunately, we haven't even got to the starting gate yet. So our recommendation would have to be no change if you want a definite recommendation at this stage. Otherwise, we can bring it back to the third meeting or go straight to council.
Okay, I'll bring in Councillor Frost and then go back to Councillor Cole. Councillor Frost.
Yeah, sorry, I was actually going to be the complete opposite of Dick, and I was going to say, well, if they haven't pulled their finger out and given us the details by now, do we really have time? Because I just want to refresh my memory, because it has been a long time since we've seriously worked on this sort of stuff. Hale's boundary in the Cornwall Council divisions change quite radically. So if they change their internal warding, that doesn't have to conform to the Cornwall Council warding, but it has to be agreed by the boundary commission. Is that not going to make quite hard? Like, this is going to make it quite hard work, or is that me just making hard work of it?
No, it will be hard work. We're not scared of hard work, but we are wanting more details. And up to now, we were happy to say, okay, please let us have the details. And if they let us have the details before the third meeting, then we can bring it to the panel. But if you actually don't want to bring it to the third meeting, then it would have to go straight to council, Chairman.
Okay, given that, could I go back to Councillor Cole? Given what's been said, what do you think now?
I think as we're trying to get so much done in a short period, I think I mean, I think we go with no change at the moment, but we actually proactively let the town council know and the two divisional members, so that they do still have time to put the detailed information in for another stage, and leave it at that. And as long as we go back to them first thing tomorrow to give them the option, I think we're doing our job, aren't we?
Okay, so is that fair enough, Stephen? Are you muted?
I was muted. Sorry, I was trying to multitask. Yes, that's quite right. If you want to make a decision now, then it would have to be no change. And then if we do get anything between now and council, we would then update you, and we would update the panel, and we would then make a recommendation.
Okay, is everybody happy with that? Can I ask Steve, because you're taking the minutes, are you clear on that?
Yes, thank you.
Right. Okay, so we can move on. Can I also say, sorry, one thing I will say, I don't want to miss anything out. So if officers think I'm missing anything out, then do please tell me. I think we're down now to what on the table at the back is 143, which is Helston and Wendron, the bit which is non-contentious, namely increasing the number of councillors in Helston from 12 to 14, the abolition of the warding in Wendron, and the reduction in the number of councillors in Wendron from 15 to 11. Right, now we have members from both Helston and Wendron, and I'm taking it that you're all supportive of that. But Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, very supportive of that. I think we did have a discussion about going up to the, raising the number of Helston Town Councillors. My personal view is that 12 is enough, but I think Dick Cole convinced me that any extra councillors would be well received, and I think I went along with it. So that's just been my view on it, that I'm happy to go with it as it is.
Okay, and I take it, Councillor Jenkin, if you're still with us, you're still content with the 2 points about Wendron?
Yes, that's as Wendron Parish Council asked for. So I'm very content with that.
Good. Now the next thing is to remove the warding at Crowan, and since you're on the line, I take it you're still supportive of that.
Yes, removing the warding will make it much easier. It's often very difficult to work out, or for parish councillors to work out which area of the parish they're supposed to be supporting, because they operate across the whole parish. So having no wards will be much more effective.
Okay, does anybody else wish to speak on those issues relating to Helston, Wendron and Crowan, or can we move on? Fine. Whoops. Sorry, I moved the screen, it went the wrong way. I think we've already dealt with the Camborne Gwynia-Gwithian boundary issues, so I don't think we need to go into that again. What this does bring us on now to is Gwynia-Gwithian, the number of councillors and the warding, and that is covered. If officers are quicker than me, I will be very appreciative. Yeah, the number of councillors on the parish council and the warding.
Page 28, Chairman.
Page 28.
As far as I can see.
Yeah, so paragraph 24. These were changes which I don't think we were supporting, because we're not sure that it works in terms of the electoral numbers. That's the argument, isn't it, Stephen?
Yes. Yes, Chairman.
So the recommendation is that there's no change to the to the warding arrangements and the number of councillors for Gwynedd Gwyddian. Yes, because a lot of the request for an increase in councillors on the assumption that their 9 requests for change would be agreed, I suspect. So as they have not, the recommendation was to leave it as it was. Okay, everyone happy with that? Right, now we move up to Caharrock, Gwenup and St Day, where there were some quite minor parish boundary changes, which I think there was a consensus for. The discussion of that starts on page 44 on Caharrock, and then Gwenup on 45 and St Day on page 49. My recollection of this one was that it was straightforward. The local members didn't really get involved in this, and I don't think we had any difficulty with this before. So is everybody still content with those changes? And this is one where, Chairman, there would be a coterminosity issue and change electoral division boundaries. Right. But very few properties affected. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for coming in whenever there's something a bit unusual or particular that we ought to be aware of. So that's okay. Next is Iluggan. The number of councillors on Iluggan Parish Council, and the recommendation is that it stays at 9. Let me just check that. That's what's recommended, Chairman. No submissions have been received as a result of the Cornwall Council's decision in December to recommend that there be no change. Okay, does anybody wish to speak on that? Okay, so we're supporting the recommendation on that. Now we come on to the parish boundary between St Agnes and Portreath. This is discussed initially on pages 47 and 48. That was a joint submission by Portreath and St Agnes. Yes, and I don't think either of the divisional members was unhappy about that. So again, I think this continues not to be contentious. So this is a small adjustment between Portreath and St Agnes. And also on Portreath is a request to increase the number of councillors from 7 to 9. So are we all happy with that still? Good. Next is the warding of Carnbray, and this is discussed on page 45 on paragraph 14. On page 45, paragraph 14, and again the recommendation from officers is not to go along with that. Do you want to explain that one, Steve, in a minute? Yeah, certainly, Chairman. Carnbray is a protected parish in that the Local Government Boundary Commission for England did make changes to their internal arrangements. And Cornwall Parish Council do not want to reverse them, and so the recommendation was that there was no change because that's really a matter for the Local Government Boundary Commission, and we have no particular concerns either way. The important thing, Chairman, is that there has been no submissions received nor any further proposals made during the public consultation. So therefore, we're going with the decision of Council in December. Okay, so so is everybody content with that? Fine. Now we come on to Crantock and Cubert. This is the bit which is hopefully still non-contentious. This is a boundary change between Crantock and Cubert parishes, which is by a camping site. It's very different from the other issues in that area. So I think we supported that perfectly happily before. Any comments on that one now? This is on page 63, and again I think we're right that we've had on Cubert supporting. Crantock would have preferred a bit more, but they've now reached agreement. Is that right?
Absolutely right, Chairman.
So Crantock and Cubert are agreed. So is that one okay? Righty-ho. So now we move on to the boundary between St Newlyn East and St Eneder at Mitchell, and the Vice Chairman will naturally want to speak on that.
No, the request came from Newlyn East, and St Eneder has agreed to it as a council, so it's non-controversial and can be agreed.
Jolly good. And again, for those who are following it, that's pages 68 and 69. So again, it's good that agreement has been there. So anyone dare challenge Councillor Cole on the future of St Eneder's parish boundaries? No.
And we are also recommending the electoral division. The consent of the boundary commission will be needed because St Newlyn East is a protected parish.
Righty-ho. Now the next one is combining QB, which is a parish meeting, and Tregony, which is a parish, to become the parish council of Tregony with QB. I don't know if Councillor Edgerton is still with us. He was earlier.
Yeah, I
yes. Oh, good. Excellent.
Yes, I mean, this was surprisingly non-controversial. It was something that makes absolute sense because QB parish meeting is sort of lost in the sort of, 2000 years ago type of operation. I didn't think that they would agree to be subsumed by Tregony, but I suspect perhaps the chairman and the clerk decided they didn't want to continue running this thing, so they agreed to the merger with Tregony, and Tregony are happy to take them over. And ironically, 3 residents of QB actually sit on Tregony Parish Council, including the chairman of Tregony Parish Council. So it all seems to be amicable, and it would be really nice to get this one over the line before the elections next year. And I understand from Stephen that I may have the privilege of sitting on a shadow parish for a few months, which will be a novel experience for me, but just to oversee this change. But hopefully you will all support that, and that will go ahead.
Yeah, this also gives me a further opportunity to apologise for the mistake in the press release that was issued, which I drafted in error, and I was picked up by our mutual friend Desmond here very quickly. So I daren't show my face in Tregony for some time.
But people have committed far bigger sins than that in Des's eyes at the moment, so don't worry about that.
True. Okay, so is everybody still enthusiastic about Tregony with QB? And sorry, just to confirm, the number of councillors is going to be 10.
10, Chairman.
And it's unwarded.
Yeah.
Okay. Tregony and QB sorted. The next one is Kenwyn and Truro. There was consideration early on in the review of bringing Glowerth out of Kenwyn into Truro, but I think I'm right in saying that nothing more has come forward during the latest stage of the review, so we're not being recommended to pursue that.
That's right, Chairman. The Truro City Council have actually resolved to take no further action on this, so they have made no submissions in relation to Kenwyn. So therefore, so there's nothing really which would seek us to change the recommendation that was made by Council in December.
Okay, and if anybody's following the report, that is on page 74 in relation to Kenwyn. So the recommendation is no change between Kenwyn and Truro. Everyone happy with that? Right, so I'm just going to... Oops. Sorry. Okay, so this brings us on to, so I've just lost it a minute.
St Austell Bay, page 96, Chairman.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow the list on another computer. Yeah, the next one is which has a will of its own at the moment. Just 1 minute.
Line 24. Oh, sorry, number 24.
Right, so yeah, sorry, I'm with it now. So 100, yeah, this is the boundary between St Austell Bay and St Austell Town Council, and the recommendation is to move Chandler's Walk, which is one road, out of St Austell into St Austell Bay. That's been requested by residents, and I don't think is controversial, to the best of my knowledge. Okay. The other St Austell one in this category is a minor adjustment to the boundary with St Mewan, which is to bring a small number of houses in an estate called Edgecombe Green, which is quite an old estate, out of St Mewan into St Austell. And again, I think there's agreement between both parish councils that would be acceptable.
It is. There was one submission received from a resident of St Mewan's saying that they wish to stay as they are, but there was no particular rationale other than they thought St Mewan was better.
Okay. So, any comments on that? Right, now we move on to Bodmin and Helens. At one stage, there was early on, there was a request for Bodmin to expand into part of Helland. I don't think that's been pursued further, but I think Councillor Frost is obviously the best person to advise us on that.
Yeah, it was something that Bodmin Town Council sort of realised late on in the process, that part of the allocation site actually does creep over into Helland Parish, but as it's probably the last allocation site in Bodmin that's going to be built on, and the part of it that it sits in is going to be the last of that part, which could be 2035 before it's actually even built on. They decided that they would just wait it out and perhaps review it once the estate's built.
Okay, so the recommendation is for no change there. The next one is Llanivet and Luxillian, where there's a recommendation for a minor boundary change, which I don't think came from either parish council. I think it's from an individual. Councillor Saunders, when she contacted me yesterday about the bigger Treverben issues, did express her support for Luxillian Parish's boundary not changing, and again I think that one is still right. So is everybody happy with that?
Mark, I just to mention, because Llanivet's right next to Bodmin, I've had no one from Llanivet Parish Council has mentioned anything to me about this, so I would have thought if there was any interest they would have said something.
Fair enough. Councillor Cole.
I was just clarifying what you said because I'm reading through. Just for clarity's sake, there is no change recommended on this one, is there? So
that's right.
Yeah, sorry, I think I misheard what you said. That's fine.
No,
so
sorry.
No change is easy.
I'm afraid slips of the tongue are quite likely from me at the moment with all of this. I'm not aware that Councillor Batters has got involved as the other divisional member, but Councillor Saunders is certainly supportive of this, so that seems all right. Next is Broad Oak to change the name to Braddock. That's what they want. Everyone happy? I know there's always been, it's an interesting history point because it's often been the case that you could call it either, as I understand it, but they want to be Braddock and not Broad Oak, so that's good. Okay, everyone happy with that?
Yeah, just to come in again as someone that lives relatively close to it, I didn't even realise it was called Broad Oak. I always thought it was called Braddock Parish, so I think the change makes sense.
Foy Town Council want to increase their number of councillors from 10 to 12. Again, I think we've considered that before and been supportive, so hope that's all right. St Veep and St Winnow, there was a proposal for ritual some time back for them to merge. Neither parish council has wanted that. I'm just going to interrupt to say, Councillor Wood, I fully understand if you have to leave. Thank you for your contribution by being helpful by not saying a lot. Councillor Martin, who's a local Cornwall councillor, has contacted me. He doesn't support the merger either, so the parent nor the local Cornwall council want that. So I think the recommendation is not to support any change to St Veep or St Winnow. Okay with everybody? So now we come on to the boundary between Dob Walls and Liscard. I'm going to ask officers to explain this one so there's no confusion. I think this is the bit of the Liscard boundary that we think is non-controversial, but I think it's quite important, given that other aspects are controversial, that we're absolutely clear what we're voting on.
I would suggest that Dan put the map up.
Absolutely, I'll just share my screen. Take a second or two. I'm just going to find Liscard. So we have, this is the boundary between Dob Walls and Troydland and Liscard, and it's at the Moorswater Industrial Estate. I'll zoom in just on the industrial estate there. Sorry, can everyone see the screen? You can see the map that I'm displaying. Yeah. And so we have the industrial area here. The majority of it's already in Liscard, and it's just take the remaining part of it into Liscard. Currently no residential homes there. So that's one part, and then the other part is at the sewage works. Again, it's the complete sewage works and no residential properties. And both Dob Walls and Troydland and Liscard and Town Council are both in agreement for this one. Sorry, I also didn't point out the key to this map, which isn't obvious. We'll be looking at these maps in the future again. So the existing parish boundaries are the blue line with the dots on, and the recommended changes are I'd probably call that turquoise, the sort of the solid line. Mm-hmm. But please ask if you have any questions.
Does everybody find those maps adequate, the way that they're being shown? It probably isn't so significant now, as Dan rightly said, as it will be as we work our way through the more contentious areas.
Yes, thank you, Dan.
Jolly good. Vote of confidence from Councillor Thomas.
Always trying.
So, so again, I think we're being told there is local consensus on that. So everyone content for this boundary change between Dobwalls and Trewidland and Liscard to take place.
And it would have to go into the Liscard South Ward, and it would need the consent of the Boundary Commission because Liscard is a protected parish.
Right.
And Dobwalls is as well.
Of course, yes. Yeah, thanks for that, Dan.
Okay. Next is Lewin Polperro, where there's again another minor boundary change which we discussed before. And I think I'm right in saying again that one has got support from both the town council and Polperro Community Council.
Yeah.
And that's on page 131 of the report. So again, that one looks straightforward. So after that, it's Morville and St Martin, which is perhaps this one. I think we should have a map again, particularly for the benefit of members who've joined the panel recently. And it's again, I think there is agreement on this now, but again, perhaps if we just see it so we're clear. So this is the boundary between Morville and St Martin, and that's discussed on page 133.
So I've just highlighted the red area because it could be quite difficult to understand the change, but the red area is the area which would be transferred. So we've got this area here, which will be is proposed to transfer from St Martin by Loo to Morville, and then we've got this area here in no man's land, which would be transferred from Morville to St Martin by Loo. So it's a 2-in-1.
So there are two bits going in different directions.
That's correct. Thank you, Malcolm.
That's probably why they were able to agree so easily. So again, that looks, is everybody acceptable of that?
Yes.
I'm sure it won't be long before we get to issues that you all start talking. I'm sure of that. It's the lull before the storm. Next is Callington, where the proposal is to remove the warding, which I know Councillor Long supports, and I'm sure Councillor Cole can explain that if anyone challenges it.
I'm here as well.
Oh, good. Sorry, I couldn't see you. Excellent.
Yes, more than happy to support that. Callington, just for the basis of to avoid any confusion, so the Kelly Bray part of Callington was in a different electoral division up until 2021, Kelly Bray, St Dominic and St Melian. That has now been re-amalgamated to Callington. Therefore, it's the unanimous view of the town council that we go back to having one ward of 12 councillors as previously, and there has been no opposition from anybody in either Callington or Kelly Bray.
Good, that's what we like to hear. So I'm sure nobody is going to disagree with Councillor Long on that. No. The next one from that part of the world is Calstock to change the number of councillors for Delaware Ward from 4 to 5, which I think we are recommending. And that is on pages 151 and 152. So it also increases the total number of councillors from 18 to 19. Everyone all right with that?
Yes.
Good. St Eve, the proposal is to change the name from St Eve to St Eve and Pensilva, which seems good. So again, everyone comfortable with that? Right, now we've now got through the we've now got through the second category. So we now move on to the third category. So from now on, it starts to become a bit more complicated, and more complicated still later. So I suggest we do to Wednack, which is the first of the category 3 ones, and then we'll probably have another break at that point. So again, I think this one, probably a map, does need to be displayed, because those of you who were on the panel before will recall that I think there was a general support for Wednack expanding, but there was a bit of a debate about how far into the rural bits it should go. So I think we need to understand the detail of this at this point. Dan, over to you.
Again, I'll just flash up the change in red. We don't have to dwell on the red bits because it might stop us looking at the detail. So this area, the area in red would be transferred from Ludgman to Wednack.
Any comments from anyone?
Yes, Mike here, Mike Thomas.
Yes,
I remember this meeting very well because we had Mark Harris do a very big presentation on this, didn't he, in St John's Hall? Is this the one I'm thinking of?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
The storyteller.
Yes, that's right.
And is this what they wanted?
Well, to Wednack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it is in the end, yes. Councillor Kenny.
Just a question, really. Is there anything natural in that boundary? I mean, what is it? Are they just following fields round? There's no stream or anything that creates a proper boundary?
I think you're correct there, Councillor Kenny. I'll just bring up an aerial view. It seems to be following mostly hedges and some lanes, some tracks. So you could say these were physical boundaries. Some are stronger than others.
It was what, as far as I understand, it was the actual submission made by Wednack, if I remember rightly. Is that right, Dan? Or Andrew?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's clearer when you take away the blue lines and you can see it's actually running along some fairly odd lanes, but if that's the natural boundary, that's the natural boundary. What's the blue bit? Is that the existing parish, the dark royal blue?
So what we have on the screen at the moment is the existing parish, and then the turquoisey colour is the proposed boundary. Yeah. So I've just flashed it up a few times, but the majority of it is along lanes and tracks. Recollection is that there's approximately, I think, somewhere between 60 and 100 properties involved.
Yeah, this is a major change. There's no doubt about it, but it seems popular. Councillor Cole, then Councillor Frost.
Yeah, I was just coming in because I remember quite well the meeting at Penzance. And I actually asked a question in that meeting about the boundaries, because obviously the key issue was about bringing the settlement of Nancledra into one parish, because as you can see from that map, the village of Nancledra, or the hamlet, is clearly split between two parishes. And I queried, whilst that seems sensible, I did query why the other arm of the extension, if you like, on the right hand side. So if you go out a bit more, Dan. Yeah, so if you like, the bit to the southwest seemed logical, but then there's an extra bit to the eastern side, but the response I got was that's what people in the area were after. So it is very much reflects what people asked for, and the people in the eastern arm say they they associate with Nancledra and they wanted to be in the same parish as the settlement. So, and that's what's gone through. I think that's accurate, Malcolm, from your recollections as well.
Yeah, yes, I would agree with you. Yeah. Let's see if Councillor Frost agrees.
Oh, yeah, largely. I do recall this, and I remember it was like Dick said, it was to reunite Nancledra. My question again was, because memory, again going back to all this, on the right-hand side, the one that Dick was just talking about, there seems to be on the map two properties that seem to be part of that farm cottage settlement that are away that are on the other side, and I was just wondering if do they not look to Nancledra as well, because it kind of, I don't know what the properties are there. They might be very disparate and have nothing to do with them, but I just wanted to make sure that we don't split that and then they go, well, hang on a minute, you've just gone right through our road and we're in a different parish. I just wanted to sort of highlight that.
That is a very interesting point, because there is definitely a logic behind what you're saying, but equally I'm assuming there was a logic behind why the locals didn't want it. I don't know what we do. I think it's this is tempting fate, because we're going through things quite smoothly so far. I think there will be a worry later on if we start wanting to tinker too much with the boundaries, whether we can clarify all that in a matter of weeks. So, I must admit, I think my inclination at the moment is that let's go along with what the locals are asking for, and if they want a further adjustment at some point in the future, they could come back. But I'm not challenging your logic or your memory.
And perhaps, if I can add, Chairman, this is the proposal that actually has been recommended by Cornwall Council following the meeting in December.
Yeah, I would support.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm not saying we changed the recommendation. I'm just wondering whether it's maybe worth whoever the divisional member is for that area to, I don't know, if there is a chance to make a late change for them, because what you don't want is just them to start kicking up for the sake of it. If we could make a minor change agreed in the time.
I don't think that's very likely, because everybody's been given lots of opportunities. That has provoked Councillor Thomas and Councillor Cole to come back. So, Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I would support what you have said. We need to go with it as it is. But I think what Councillor Frost has done is to raise the question, which I think is very appropriate. And in the end, it's up to those in the parish to come back and say whether what is on offer is not acceptable. So it's the important bit here is to communicate this to them.
Indeed. If anybody wants to change the recommendation or ask officers to make further investigations before council, they can do that. We'll finish the debate and then try and wrap it up. Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I think from what Lee has said, I understand where he's coming from, but obviously on the eastern flank, they are actually following roads, and obviously we always get into the issue that you potentially have got dwellings on both sides of a road. So if you go down a road, there's always going to be someone on the other side, and if you take every property in, then you have a load of anomalous bumps that aren't relating to the fields around them. So I think there is, to a degree, a logic with it. So I think you're quite right. We leave it as it is, and as you say, it's still got to go to full council. And if there are any issues, the divisional member or the parish council or the parish councils plural have got the chance to send in further representations prior to that. So yeah, I say I'm with you, leave as is.
If we do that, I think, again, this is a point for Steve Childs doing the minutes today. I think if you can reflect our discussion, because probably so far there's not a lot which actually needs to go in the minutes to add to the recommendations, which will please you. But I think with this one, perhaps if that goes in the minutes, then when then that could prompt anybody else who wants to pursue this further. That might be the best way to take this possible area of uncertainty on.
Yep, fine, got that. Thank you.
Right. So yeah, just one point. I know we're always told that we're only meant to use the chat box for indicating a wish to speak. I don't think there's any problem with officers sharing things, but Dan, do you think you could say what you've just written? I think that ought to be on the public record.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Yeah, I've just done a very quick check. I have the option to see every property or landowner, I suppose, using the little crosses, and I've clicked on all of the crosses directly next to the line, and at the moment I've counted three properties which are residential dwellings that are just outside of the line. Just for your information, really. So when I click on them, it takes me to tells me what the property is, or I think in the case of some of these other ones, it's just refers to land or a junction.
Perhaps we can ask Andrew. It says in the report that there were 2 submissions from residents of Ludgvan, one in opposition and one in support. Perhaps at some point we can have see whether either of those residents are in those properties alongside that lane. So we can have a look at that, Chairman, if you wish.
Yeah, I think.
I don't know offhand myself, but
yes, I think that would be a good piece of work to do quickly. Yeah.
Okay.
So, subject to all of that, the minutes will be written up to reflect the fact that there was discussion and to make it clear roughly what the area, the sort of issue at dispute was. Subject to that, is everybody happy to support the recommendation, which is on page 33 in relation to Wednack Parish? So it is the land which is shown on the map, but if anything changes between now and council, we would need total clarity about it. So that's why it's probably a bit difficult, but we will. But if this debate does generate anything, then I think we can still try to pick it up. Okay, is everyone happy with that?
Yes, I'm happy.
Okay, so
happy
it's right. So it's 4:05. We'll have another 5-minute break, and then at 5 o'clock we'll see where we are. Okay, thank you all very much.
Malcolm.
Yes.
Sorry, Malcolm. Just quickly, I'm going to have to leave the meeting now because I've got to go back to work. So yeah, apologies for the rest of the meeting.
Okay. No, thanks for your contribution so far. I understand that. There won't be any formal votes today, so I don't think your absence is going to be as big a problem as it might have been. Councillor McLenning.
Thanks, Malcolm. I can't put a cross in my box today. I'm due about 5 o'clock in Foxhole because there's a remembrance being had for those 2 young men who died in the car crash, and I ought to be there. And then I've got a parish council meeting at 7 o'clock. So I've listened intently this afternoon. I hope I've learned a little. So I'm asking permission where I go and attend these 2 functions. Really.
Yeah. No, I think that is I think that is absolutely appropriate, and I fully understand why you have to do that. Okay. It would be very wrong not to. Yeah. Obviously, there is an issue that we have to remain quorate, but I don't think that's going to be a problem at the moment. But we'll see where we are at 5 o'clock.
I don't want to let you down, but I think it's
no, you're certainly not. That's not in your nature, Councillor McLenning. Right. If you leave the meeting as and when you have to, and perhaps if you're not leaving now, if you're leaving a bit later, perhaps if you type in the chat box when you're leaving, so we know that you've gone. Is that
I
all right?
can't get into the chat box. I've
Oh,
tried.
sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
well, okay,
The
right.
sad thing, I was with the family last week. Had some problems, and I went to see them last week, and then that happened. So,
Yeah.
oh dear. Okay. All the best, Malcolm.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, look, it's now 8 minutes past 4. We'll start again at 4:15, and next is the boundary between Cambourne and Cambrai. Thank you all very much for where we've got to so far. Right, it's 4:15. Shall we get going again?
Yep.
I thought everyone had gone home. Okay, right, we will carry on, and then at 5 o'clock we'll take stock of where we are, if that's all right. So the next issue is the boundary between Camborne and Carnbray at Tucking Mill. Dan, again, perhaps we could have a map up on that. This is on pages 43 and 44.
So I'll bring up the consultation documents.
Right.
I can find it.
Yeah, this is one which is contentious, isn't it? Because there's a difference of opinion between Camborne and Carnbray.
So we have on the left-hand side the current boundary.
I can't see your screen. I don't know if anyone else can.
Thank you.
I can see lots of extremely handsome and pretty people, but not you.
My apology. That's sort of the visual version of being on mute. So here we have on the left-hand side of the black line is Camborne, and on the right-hand side is the current Carnbray, and then the red line is around the Tucking Mill area, which Camborne are requesting to be transferred into Camborne. I can get a map, the interactive map that we can zoom out on, but it won't have this border, this boundary marked on it.
Okay. Because this is the area as you're coming off the A30 and say going to Heartlands, where councillors used to go from time to time. It's the area coming up to that crossroads.
So just to try and position you, so here we have Camborne and here we have Carnbray, and the area that we're talking about is here, the Tucking Mill area. My apologies, we don't have the non-recommended changes digitised on this interactive map.
No. But the recommendation is for no change.
That's correct.
And we received no submissions on that, Chairman.
No. Does anybody wish to speak on that? Councillor Kenny.
I don't want to speak on it, but I just wanted to clarify the same question as I did last time. I mean, on the face of it, it does look like that is an extension of Camborne. What is providing the is it the pink line that is the new divider, or the if I got that right, the pink line is what is that? Is that something natural, a road, or?
Dan, the pink line is the main road coming off the A30.
That's right. Yeah. So I've just quickly digitised it here so we can have a look on the base map. So you're absolutely right, Councillor Brown. So that's off the dual carriageway there, and it skirts around. I have to admit, I don't know what this road is personally, but it seems like a pretty major road there. So the boundaries that they've chosen are major roads.
Those of you who've been there recently, this is where the new travel lodge has been built on that corner.
And is that the other side of the boundary? Are those those aren't residentials, are they? Is that industrial area or?
I believe that's a commercial area.
Yeah.
Can I come in, Malcolm?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that road. There's the main road comes down from from the A30 down, and just below that red right angle that that's been drawn is South Crofty Mine, and the other road is the new road which was put in some time ago to feed into Camborne, avoiding going through the the old road down the bottom there. So that's where it's a sort of development site for potential expansion of housing, except for the fact that a lot of it is constrained by its proximity to South Crofty and noise concerns. So there was actually an application for housing in the corner of that right angle recently, which we turned down on the grounds of potential noise from South Crofty, and the developer lost on appeal. So it is a growth area for housing with the infrastructure there, but the complication of South Crofty. But where you draw the line between Camborne and Carnbray, I think is always going to be rather arbitrary, because you could find any point at which you could say that's the natural boundary. So I would suspect that you're recommending no change, aren't you? So
yes,
say just leave it as is.
Stephen, I'll bring you in as an officer, then Councillor Jenkin and Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to give some information to members, the council, it was reported to council in December that there had been 2 local consultations that had produced conflicting results, and council felt that panel recommended to council that although it is considered that the use of a road would be helpful to delineate a clear boundary between parishes, this did not override the importance of community identity. So the issue of the public meetings and the issues that was responded to at that point was that there was more of a community identity with Carnbray than with Camborne.
What defines the current boundary? Is that just with that kink in the middle? It looks like it's following something.
I think it's a stream, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the bottom of the valley, a sort of watercourse.
Yeah, so that's the perfectly logical boundary.
Okay, Councillor Jenkin, you're the closest to a local member here.
Well, that's why I thought I'd put in my 2 pennyworth, having been on Kerry District Council and been actively involved in the development of Tuckingmill Valley Park, which the Red River, the boundary is the Red River, which goes through there. It makes a lot of logical sense to keep the Red River as the boundary. It's got a couple of kinks in because of works that have been done, like Tuckingmill Hotel, for instance, is on one and not on the other. But if you try and define it anywhere else, it's not a natural fit with Camborne or with Carnbray. It's a bit of an identity into itself, but so it's probably best to leave it as it is.
Thank you, that is really helpful. Councillor Cole.
Hello, Malcolm. Yeah, I was going to make similar contributions to the last 2, particularly about the level of development in that area as well, and how difficult it would be to make the break between Camborne and Carnbray. So I'm also very happy that we go ahead on a no change recommendation.
Okay, so we've had a number of contributions now suggesting that we support the recommendation of no change. Does anybody wish to make a different suggestion?
No, fully agree.
Good. That is the theme of the afternoon, at least so far. Right, now we come on to the boundary between Stithians and Mabe at Long Downs. And this one, yeah, this hasn't been discussed very much at the panel meetings. I think there was some evidence of interest in changing the parish boundary at Long Downs, but it didn't really come to anything in the end. So I think the recommendation is still for no change. Is that right?
That's right, Chairman. Neither parish council supported the proposals and no submissions received or further proposals made.
So does anybody wish to pursue that one any further? No. Okay, so we're content to leave that as it is. Okay, well that's Stithians and May. Now we're coming on to Falmouth, Budok and Penryn. Now you may be surprised that this is so high up the agenda, because those of you who were on the panel before will remember we had lots of lengthy discussion about Falmouth and Budok. The reason the Vice Chairman and I put it this high up is because we're conscious there's been a lot of joint work more recently between the parish councils involved, and we may be a lot closer to a consensus than we were. Now, can I just check, because I don't think any of the Falmouth members are here, although I did write a couple of times with the order, so they might have been aware that we were going to be getting to this. But we do have Councillor Bastin, who is on the panel, who of course is Councillor for Budok. So perhaps if we can deal with this in bits and see where it takes us. Maybe before you come in, Councillor Bastin, perhaps this is one, Dan, where you could put the maps up and just give us an overview of, if you like, the whole sort of Falmouth, Penryn, Budok debate. Councillor May was in touch with me earlier today. She's in another meeting but might have been joining us, but I'm guessing that she hasn't been able to. But we have to continue with who is here. Dan.
So we've had a few iterations of the Falmouth Budok map. I guess I'll take it from the south and move upwards. So I think there's, from the Budok side, it made sense to move the boundary to the I've forgotten what the road's called here now. I think it turns into the Bickland Water Road. So move the boundary from the edge here, which I think it followed the stream or the river for a little bit, and then was sort of a constant distance away from the main road, and then sort of came up into the more residential areas. And I believe there was a bit of a kick out at the Taylor Wimpey site, which I can't remember exactly where it is. I think it's around here somewhere. But I think through negotiations, that has then been brought back to the Bickland Water Road. And also, I think in the original proposals, correct me if I'm wrong, this is sort of in an industrial area with a few more housing developments going in, and then we have the big kick out here where we've got some more development area. And originally the cricket field wasn't included in the proposal, but through negotiations and concessions, I think the agreement, as we see here, the turquoise line, is where we stand today.
Has there not been an agreed map 1A on page 62?
Thank you. So what we see on the screen now should be identical to the map 1A.
Okay. Have you finished for the moment, Dan?
Yes, thank you.
If so, I'll bring in Councillor Bastin, and I think what would really help the panel, given that you're having now to act as spokesperson for the whole of Greater Falmouth, maybe if you can both explain what you think the current position is from Budok's perspective, but where the discussion with the neighbouring parishes has got, that would really help us.
Right. Oh, sorry, we're going to leave the map up, or I mean, I'm happy either way. But basically, what Dan's just shown us is what Falmouth and Budok agreed to, 100%. We had numerous meetings and some sort of agreement on where houses were most likely to interact with Falmouth and most likely to stay within Budok. So the whole thing, as far as Falmouth and Budok are concerned, I mean, they'd very much like this to roll forward. There is a question for Stephen, and I don't know whether we have the the power to legislate, but one of the joint agreements, again, this should not be revisited for 25 years, and I don't know whether we can do that.
No.
In a word. Right.
No, no, if somebody puts a petition in, then there is a requirement, as I said earlier on in the meeting, after 2 years, there is a duty to consider it. So the conclusion may well be the same, but you cannot do that, no.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, I thought that would be the case, but having said that, that was one of the kind of bargaining chips, if you like, that sort of came out of it. If you go north of that boundary, we've also conceded a long strip of land to Penryn. This is Budok I'm talking about now. And you can see it along there. If you can colour that red, perhaps, Dan, a little bit from the round. Yeah, well, yes, that's more or less, as you say, that red area is what Budok has given to both Falmouth and Penryn. And if we come back going south, along the road where that 50 feet that came in for no apparent reason at all has now gone back to the main road. So that's really where we are, and total agreement between both sides. And there is some, slightly, you know, I don't know whether Mary's still here, but if she is, there's some contention between Falmouth and Penryn about the little piece of land at the bottom as you sort of touch the river. I mean, Falmouth are saying they would like it, and Penryn are saying, I'd like you to have it. So, but that's the area of contention. But all the rest in red has been agreed by both parishes to the point where they're quite happy to let that become reality. If I can sort of stop there for a minute.
So if we go back to the report, as opposed to the map, there are 2 recommendations under Budok Parish on pages 52 running over to 53. And I think you're saying, Councillor Bastin, that those recommendations are acceptable certainly to Budok and
certainly to Falmouth.
And the second one is acceptable to Penryn as well. So
Penryn, yes.
So shall we just close down discussion on that? Does anybody else wish to speak on the Falmouth Penryn, the boundaries between Budok and Falmouth and Budok and Penryn, and we'll come on to Falmouth and Penryn afterwards. Councillor Simons.
Yes, sorry.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Really, the lower part of Penryn is that is in my division. I thought you was going to talk about that then, but I'll wait till after you finish that. Hello?
The chairman's on mute.
Oh.
Sorry, I think what I wanted to do, and may well do with other parishes later, where there are areas of agreement, let's discuss them first, so we can agree them and then come on to the areas which are disagreed with. But I'll come back, I promise to come back to you next. Councillor Cole.
Yes, I think where we've got agreement between 2 parishes, you're absolutely spot on. We agree that ourselves and move on. I mean, I think we've both joked, haven't we, that we tried to broker a compromise which successfully annoyed both sides, and then that forced them to come together and sort out their own compromise. And I can confirm that when we were at like the public meeting at Heartlands, we had both sides there talking to us privately, saying they'd come up with this deal. So it's good to see the process working and coming up with something that's logical and makes everyone happy. So yeah, well done to John and everyone else involved.
Good. So shall I just clarify, before we come on to the Penryn-Falmouth boundary, which may be more complicated, is everybody else content with the new arrangements between Budok and Falmouth and Budok and Penryn? Because if so, we can move on. Right, that's good. So if we now come on to the boundary between Falmouth and Penryn, and Councillor Simmons, over to you on that one.
Thank you very much. Would it be possible to put the map up so we could just see it?
Absolutely. I will. I'll bring up the consultation document because there was two separate proposals, one from Falmouth and one from Penryn. This first one I will show from Falmouth, just because it's first on the documents. And sorry, I'll carry on zooming in a little bit here. So the part that we're talking about is to the east of this roundabout, and covers the marina. And correct me if I'm wrong, there's the Dale site, and I think there's another. Is there a supermarket around here that, or the park and ride? Sorry.
Yeah, that's the other side of the roundabout.
Thank you. This area here, and on the other side of Penryn's viewpoint, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the Dales site, and the proposal was to take that all into Penryn, and then the marina and the park and ride would have gone to Falmouth.
Yes, that's right. We was in Penryn, we was prepared to allow Falmouth to have the marina and right across to the river to our boundary. That's right, yeah, that's right. But we want to keep the Dale site and that field to keep. That just seems to be like rounding off the boundary and giving most of it to Falmouth. It's just that Penryn, we felt that we didn't want to give away that bottom of the boundary on the top is the railway line, and then the line goes down through the Dale site down to the main road and river. Yeah, that's the road. Yeah, and we just felt we didn't want to make Penryn any smaller, and then what we wanted to, and we just wanted to keep Penryn at that side, and it looks as perfect just to round that off and give the marina back to Falmouth.
So just can I go back to Dan again, because looking at the recommendations, I'm looking at page 54 where they're covered under Falmouth. Paragraph 15 seems to cover the discussion between Falmouth and Penryn, and there is a recommendation for one piece of land to be transferred only. Could you just clarify again on the map what is the piece of land that is being recommended to be transferred? And I then want to check with Councillor Simmons whether you're saying that Penryn wouldn't agree with that, so we know what the debate for us to come to a view on is.
So just to be clear from the reports, the officer recommendation, and I believe what was agreed previously, is for Budock, this area here would be transferred to Penryn, and obviously the Budock Falmouth area to the west. We've already discussed that transfer. Yeah. However, the recommendations after that were that no change would be made between Falmouth and Penryn. So this area, this disputed area here, that would be the recommendation. There is no change.
Okay, so yeah, I was confused. So the recommendation is no change at all to the boundary between Falmouth and Penryn.
That's correct.
Which I take it, Councillor Simmons, is what you would want us to agree.
Yes, please.
And we don't have anybody here from Falmouth to put a contrary view. So is there any discussion? Obviously, whatever we decide is a recommendation to council. It's possible for amendments to be put at that stage, but I think we probably have to proceed with our recommendations. So does anybody else wish to speak on the Falmouth-Penryn boundary, and in particular to speak on whether they might support some movement from Penryn into Falmouth? No. So I think given that, then I think we're saying that we will agree with the recommendation for no change to the boundary between Falmouth and Penryn. So Councillor Simmons, you have won that one.
Thank you very much.
But there is another hurdle to come still.
Yeah, yes, still. And I think the next one's a bigger one.
Now then, so just to clarify, I'm just looking at my list of issues to agree with. Now, I think if we've dealt with that, I think the remaining issue is the boundary between Penryn and Mabe at the university campus. So again, perhaps we could have that explained on a map.
I'll try and find a map that shows it in the consultation document. Bear with me a second.
I think this relates to page 55, paragraphs 18 and 19.
And it's map 6.
Thank you.
Consultation.
That's helpful. Thank you very much.
I think the issue here is which parish the university would be in, isn't it?
So again, please correct me if I'm wrong. There are a couple of parts to this discussion. We have the industrial estate around here, which is currently in Mabe, and obviously the whole of the university campus. And then to the north, I think we have some land that was earmarked for was it student accommodation? So that was the first one. Again, sorry, we haven't got a key on this, but the dotted blue line is the existing parish boundary, and the red would be the proposed. So the proposition is that the university would move into Penryn, and yeah, I think that's it.
Councillor Cole.
Yeah, Dan just said the proposition is that it would move in, but the recommendation is that there's no change. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Cole, that's correct. The recommendation is no change for this one.
Yeah, because I think we've discussed we've had various discussions quite a lot on this one, haven't we? But at the moment we're still down as no change, so I'm happy with that. So
yeah.
I suppose it's a difficult one in that there is logic to both. You know, it's been in Mabe Parish. They identify with it equally, so do Penryn. But I think at the moment the recommendation is no change. Councillor Thomas.
Yes, I fully support what Councillor Dick Cole has said. And I can remember we had a long debate about this. So I think I fully support the recommendation.
Does anybody wish to speak against the recommendation and come up with a different proposition, which would mean a boundary change? No. In which case that one is dealt with as well. Okay, if everyone agrees with that. So we now come on to the boundary between Grandpound with Creed and Probus. Quite a big geographical jump. And this one is on page 72. I'm sure again we've got Councillor Edgerton with us, who I think probably is the best person to explain now what is proposed here. Bob.
Yep. Okay. Fine. Yeah, it's the area in red, as you see, because the boundary runs down the river foul to the north side of the main road, and then it sort of goes up towards to encompass the houses which are up Old Hill and Grandpound. But there's two properties within the red area. One is right next to the river called Penbether House, and the other one is Pengarth just up the road. And they more naturally think themselves in Grandpound than in Probus because they're literally within walking distance of the village. There is also in that in the top corner of that site, there is planning permission and there's under construction 5 houses in what was the old coal yard there. So they haven't been built yet. So there's 2 existing residential properties which propose to transfer into Grandpound. Both residents are very happy with it. Both parish councils are very happy with it. And the developer of the old coal yard, you know, I don't think it really mattered to him which parish it was in. He just wants to sell the houses to somebody. But I think the residents will feel that they live within the village of Grandpound rather than Probus. So it's all agreed with all parties, and I would hope you would endorse that. But it does involve also a local government boundary divisional change, because Grandpound will go in with divisions and Probus will go in with Laddock. So the LGBCE will have to just sign off that little tweak to the that boundary change.
Fine. Yeah, this all seems extremely sensible. Does anybody have any comments? No, that's fine. Now we'll come back to Grandpound a bit later, but the next one is the boundary between Probus and Laddock.
Shall I say something on that as well?
Yes, if you
very minor. It doesn't involve any residential properties. It's one industrial property which is next to Grandpound Road Industrial Estate, is in Laddock Parish, and then just outside of it, in that little oblong there, you will see there's one other industrial property which Laddock thought would make sense to incorporate into them, and Probus had no objection because it made no difference to them at all. So I would say just accept that proposal as it's been agreed by both parishes.
Sure. Everybody happy with that? That's very helpful. So that is Laddock and Probus. Now it becomes a bit more complicated because we've got the Edge of Truro Tresillian issues, and there are a number of parishes that meet at the same point. So I think we probably do need a map so we all know exactly what we're talking about. There's the issue of the boundary between Probus and St Clement, which is discussed on page 76 at the top, paragraph 42. About St Clement wanting to transfer some land from Probus Parish, and the recommendation is that would not be the right thing to do. Again, Councillor Edgerton, perhaps you'd like to come in on that one.
It was just a few. It's very difficult to draw a logical boundary between Probus and St Clement in that Tresillian area. Yeah, I'm just looking at which map you're going to show.
Sorry, there's a number of maps around.
Yeah, right.
That's in Michael Bent Kibble, which will come.
Map 9.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Are you looking at map 9 or for St Clement and?
Sorry, yes, I'm going to try and find.
Yeah.
The document's not letting me. There we are. Thank you.
Yeah.
We can look at this and then we can look at the interactive map. I just don't have these lines on the interactive map.
Yeah.
That's St Clement and St Erm.
Well, there's St Clement, St Erm and Probus. Yeah. Probus is where your pointer is I think Probus, and Probus currently includes that blue bit sticking out there. it's very, very difficult to draw a natural boundary between those parishes. Wherever you draw it, you've got ridiculous things like driving through one parish to get to properties in the other. There doesn't seem any more logic in transferring those properties to St Clement than leaving them in Probus. And I think St Clement have withdrawn, I think, their request, haven't they, for those properties anyway? Although they put it in, I think they've sort of basically said they're not going to be too bothered if it stays with Probus. So Probus certainly don't want to give them up. They don't see any logic in giving them up. So that's the Probus St Clement boundary.
Yes. So everybody content with that? I don't know if we've got any definite information from officers about whether St Clement has changed their position, but whether they have or haven't, I would be inclined to go along with Councillor Edgerton on this.
According to the report, Chairman, there hasn't been anything from St Clement that we have noticed, but we will check on that, and Andrew will check on that. But I think your point remains that, notwithstanding that, there's no evidence to suggest that the recommendation should be changed.
Okay, is everyone content with that for the moment? But if it turns out that we didn't have the full information, then I suppose we can reconsider. But it seems,
Chairman, and Andrew's
Councillor Cole, right?
Harry's
Andrew, yes.
Just to add that the parishes are not in agreement with this. That's been confirmed from Probus. So they've not agreed with the change, or the proposal to change.
Okay.
Probus certainly didn't agree to the change.
No.
And the recommendation is that we don't agree to the change either.
Yeah.
So things stay as they are.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone content with that?
Chairman, I'll just add that I totally agree with the recommendation of no change, which leads on very much to the bit of St Erm, which I think was directly to the north. So I think these were these were like two interlinked chunks of land, wasn't it? So it was a matter of both of them or neither of them, really. So I think that's pretty straightforward, as well as a no change.
Okay, shall we deal with St Clement and St Erm now? It's a bit, the order we've got is a bit wonky at this point, because there are lots of little issues which are all related, but the St Clement St Erm one is probably one of the easier ones, and that is discussed on page 78, paragraph 56, 78-56. And this is not supported by the officers. Does anybody wish to speak on that? Okay, so there's no change there. If we go back to my order now, which probably isn't the most logical, but it's what we came up with quickly. We're now looking at the St Clement Truro boundary at Penn School. We'll come back to the rest of Tresillian in a little while, but there was an issue, the boundary between Truro and St Clement at Penn School and by the War Memorial, and this is discussed on page 76, paragraph 48, and this tells us that the change at Penn School was agreed, and there was a bigger possible change that wasn't agreed. So perhaps Dan, if you could just explain that to us.
Okay, so I think during the meeting back last year, if you can see my map, I think Truro were happy at the time to transfer the War Memorial, but I believe that the panel extended that to include I think there's a garage and a furniture a commercial property there. it's sort of just made sense to transfer those as well, including the school. And I believe St Clement did ask for a little bit more. I need to check the consultation document, but I think from this map it sort of took it down. I think it's just farmland, I believe, but I would just check that for you. If you can bear with me just a sec, find the right part of the document. Oh, here we are. Zoom in. Lost my zooms. Hopefully you can see, actually this is, if I get them side by side. So the map here on the left was Truro's original proposal, which did actually include the War Memorial. And St Clement we're looking to transfer beyond to the south, almost all the way down to, well, actually all the way down to the river. But the panel agreed that the transfer down to the school was sensible.
Yeah, because otherwise it was bringing us through lots of farmland.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it would have taken us all the way down, well, down to the river.
Could I just go off the subject a minute? Could I welcome Councillor May? And can I tell you, we've literally not more than a quarter of an hour ago dealt with Penryn, and the recommendations to the council are for no change, either in relation to Falmouth or in relation to Mabe. And obviously, if there is not, if it's wished to put an amendment to council, that can be done. But that's the decision that we came to, and I'm sorry that because of another meeting you missed that discussion.
I don't know whether you will allow me to speak, Chairman, but
yes,
thank you for
yes,
that.
I will. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've just finished licensing. I did say it was contentious.
Yes.
However, no, I'm happy with that, and I'll take that back to Penryn Council. Thank you.
Thank you much. Yeah, I just wanted to interrupt the flow of the meeting because you've made an effort to join the meeting. I wanted to make sure that you were aware firsthand of where we've got to.
No, and thank you for informing. I just had time enough before I joined licensing just to read the paperwork that you very kindly gave us the pages to refer to. So thank you for that.
Pleasure. Okay, so we'll go back to Truro St Clement. Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I think on this one we've been wonderfully proactive, and I think the initial proposal, which took in the War Memorial, but not the houses the buildings next to it, meant you had this literally, it was like they would have owned the pavement and the War Memorial. And I think what we actually did at the top there makes a lot more sense. And also, again, I think we compromised on what both sides were saying, and I think we should stick with what we've got, to be honest. I think that's it's fair. So it's a solid change at the top, but we haven't added on the extended change further to the south. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Does anybody else wish to speak on this? I think it's fair to say the debate between the local councils was quite difficult at one point, and I think we probably have come to the right view. Everyone happy with that? So then going down a bit further, the other boundary issue between Truro and St Clement is at Sunny Corner, which is right adjacent to the Truro River.
Sorry, just while we've got the map on the screen, so I believe the request was to transfer this area just down by the river. I guess an extension of Sunny Corner, as you can see here, where these boats are. So this area here originally was requested to go to Truro. I suppose so the whole of Sunny Corner would be in one parish. But as Stephen's already referred to Truro not progressing any of the other recommendations, so I guess that's one of the reasons why this is down as no change.
Yeah. The recommendation is no change. Obviously, we can come to a different decision on the evidence before us, but it would need somebody to suggest that. I think, Councillor Cole, your comments a few minutes ago about the area a bit further north probably apply to this area as well.
Yeah, I mean, what we've got here is a little cove, isn't it, which sits nicely between two parishes, you know, so trying to change the waterfront, and it doesn't make much sense to me. I think it works as it is, to be honest, doesn't it? So happy to stick with our no change recommendation.
Okay, any challenge to that? Right, now back to Tresillian. The boundary between St Clement and St Michael Penkivel. And I can report that Councillor German did contact me earlier, and St Michael Penkivel met again last week. They are very hostile to any boundary change, and I will quote Councillor Cole's line before he does. If we were to reduce the electorate of St Michael Penkivel any further, it brings it down to the status of being a bit threatened. So I think there are good logical as well as practical arguments. But Dick, you know, you've been heavily involved in this area.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, St Michael Penkivel, going over the history, is three very small parishes merged together to form still a very small parish. And as you quite rightly said, if it loses population, it gets below the level that would normally be necessary for a viable parish council. And I think the community is very, very united in this change not happening. So, and yeah, so I think that our recommendation here is exactly spot on. Again, no change.
Can I comment on that, Malcolm?
Yes, please.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that. You know, there is a natural boundary of the river, but there's also the natural boundary that all of those houses in that area which might have moved are all owned by Mr. St Michael Penkivel, you know, the Honourable Evelyn Boscawen anyway. You know, I think he would be very unhappy with that going off into St Clement, and it just seemed to be a bit of a random land grab by St Clement to try and expand its tentacles into other parishes. So I think keep St Michael Penkivel as it is.
Okay, anyone against that?
No.
No. Okay. Right. It's just gone 5 o'clock. What I was thinking of doing is doing the remaining £1 with Creed issue, which is in relation to St Mewan. And then I was thinking probably of stopping the meeting at that point, because we have done pretty well. In fact, we've got I gave a pessimistic and an optimistic view to members generally about how far we've got, and we've already got to the optimistic point of view, which I think is quite encouraging for the remaining meetings. Now, the next, so if we do that, the next one is the boundary between Grandpound with Creed and St Mewan, which is at Hewes Water. And again, Bob, I know, will want to speak on that one. And perhaps Dan, if we can have the map up.
Okay, so this is quite an easy one to quickly digitise. So I've done it on this map. I think we had a couple of proposals throughout throughout the stages of the review, and I think it was reduced down to this corner. So I think St Mewan proposed that this corner of Hewes Water would be transferred from Grandpound with Creed into St Mewan, and it's currently an industrial site, as we can see from the map. Oh, map's a bit slow. There we are.
Yeah, can I say on that? At the moment, it's a bit bizarre, and the boundary between Groundpound and St Ewe runs through the middle of Hughes Water Engineering, one company. And I think St Mew's initial aspirations were to take part of St Ewe and part of Groundpound, and they withdrew their troops from St Ewe, but left a little battalion trying to secure this other half of the Hughes Water Engineering, which was in Groundpound, and it would be ridiculous to move that from Groundpound to St Mewan, because you would still have one business with a boundary right through the middle of it, and it would add nothing to St Mewan. So I would, it's a very sort of close point there between all those parishes, and again, it's difficult to draw the logical thing, but I think where it is at the moment, you just leave it as is. There seems no point whatsoever in transferring half of an industrial premises from one parish to another.
Fine. So you've come to the same view as local member as what the officers have. Yeah. Okay. So is everyone content with no boundary change between Groundpound with Creed and St Mewan? Okay. That then there's then the issue of the removal of the warding for Groundpound with Creed. And again, Bob, I take it you're supportive of that.
Yes, I mean, the Groundpound with Creed is warded because of historical reasons, where it was the merger of two parishes, Groundpound and Creed parish, back in about 1974, I think. And Creed parish is was only about, I don't know, 15% of the size of Groundpound, and it's remained as a ward, but it's very difficult to get councillors to sort of stand in the ward, which comprises about 40 houses, and it makes far more sense to just combine it into one ward for the whole of the parish. They've only got 9 parish councillors is their quota anyway, and to try and divide them into a 7 and 2 is a bit ridiculous, and it should really be 7 and 1 probably, but it's far better to just combine it into one ward, which all the parish councillors are happy to do, so there's no point in retaining the wards.
Okay, any challenge to that? And then I think, in my opinion, finally for tonight, St Mewan Parish Council want their warding to be abolished, and I know this comes from the parish council and they're a well-run parish, so I think we can accept that as being a good proposal, unless anybody wishes to oppose them. The clerk is very feisty, so I don't recommend that. I like her. Okay, now, in my opinion, we've now got to 8 minutes past 5. We've been going for 3 hours. I think we've done pretty well, because on my list, we're already down to having done to 225, as well as knocking off some of the ones later on, which are going to be referred to council. So I'm pretty confident at this point that we will get through the whole of it. So if everyone is content, I'm quite happy to close the meeting at this point, and then we carry on next week, and we start with the boundary between St Stephen and St Mewan at Burngallow, and then continue working our way through. So is everybody content with that? And you know, if so, can I thank everybody for their contributions and non-contributions? Councillor Fairman.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'll just say you very, very nearly got to me, and I'm just putting in a plea whether you could just stretch the meeting for another 5 minutes and tick me off.
No, I think I would prefer to. No, I think I would prefer to stop now, because at least you have the knowledge that if you come to the next meeting, you'll be away in half an hour.
Okay.
It won't be like yesterday, promise you. Is that all right?
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, so I will call a halt to the meeting now, and thank everybody for helping. Sorry, Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, just a query. Do we need to vote on what we've decided so far in case anything were to happen to any of us that would mean that we'd have to start again?
That's the best conspiracy theory that I've heard today, I think.
Well, you never know. You know,
you do never know. I will ask Mr. Taylor as our advisor about conspiracy theories.
Well, we are taking it that you have voted on the ones which you have gone from line 1 to 225 as to the appendices that you've either supported or not supported.
Well, fine. If you're happy with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy with you being happy with that.
Can I just clarify though? Would it help? I know we'll have to vote again on everything, but would it help if, even if it's not a final legally binding division, if we just formally vote when if we just have a formal vote to agree the decisions that we've made so far, and then we would vote on them again at the third meeting, or isn't that good practice?
Well, I suppose it doesn't really matter in one sense, because we can either say that you are minded to support the recommendations or as you got so far, with a formal vote being taken at the third meeting, or you could say that you have voted to confirm the recommendations now, and that you don't need the formal vote at the third meeting for some of them. So it depends on how you want to play it, Chairman. I am actually relaxed either way.
I'm inclined to feel, given what you've said, it probably doesn't matter, unless Councillor Thomas is anticipating that all 122 Cornwall councillors are going to be eliminated.
No. Just a concern that we've spent so many hours doing this, and I would hate to think we had to come back and do this all again. But
I assure you that won't happen.
I'll take that to be certain.
I think the key thing from this meeting is we've covered a lot of ground, and actually we've not had to resort to a single named vote, in that so far literally everything has been by consensus. So I think we're pretty sound, to be honest. So.
Okay, I will close the meeting. Could I ask Dick and Dan and Stephen just to hang on the line, and I think Steve Charles wants to hang on the line as well. I think if we just reflect on how the meeting has gone today, and then so we will resume on the 1st of October at 2 p.m. So again, what I'll be intending to do, I think, is another meeting starting at 2 with breaks like we've had, and finish about 5, and then do the rest on the 6th. Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you all for your contributions to today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Malcolm.